I counted the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. By the time my body hit the marble floor at the bottom of the staircase, I heard my hip crack like a branch snapping in a winter storm. My son stood at the top, adjusting his cufflinks, looking down at me the way you look at a stain on your shoe. He had shoved me down 7 steps in front of 200 employees at the annual gala of the company I built with my bare hands. He thought gravity would do what his words could never accomplish. He thought a broken hip would put the old man in a nursing home and him in the corner office permanently. He did not know that while I was lying on that cold floor, staring up at the chandelier I had personally chosen 20 years ago, I was already calculating the cost of his betrayal down to the last decimal. My name is Walter Brannigan. I am 67 years old. I spent 43 years building Brannigan Freight, the largest independent trucking company in the southeastern United States. 3,000 trucks, 8 distribution centers, 4,700 employees who fed their families because I had the guts to mortgage my house in 1983 and buy 2 used Kenworths with bald tires. This is the story of how my son tried to bury me at a party, and how I buried his career, his marriage, and his freedom before the bruises on my body had time to heal. If you have ever given someone everything and received a shove down a staircase in return, hit that subscribe button. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. And stay with me, because what happens next will make your blood boil and then turn ice cold. It was the first Saturday of December. The Brannigan Freight Annual Gala was held at the Grand Piedmont Hotel in Atlanta. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a jazz quartet playing standards that nobody listened to. I had started this tradition 20 years ago, as a way to thank the drivers, the mechanics, the dispatchers, the people who actually made the wheels turn. But somewhere along the line, my son Marcus had turned it into his personal coronation ceremony. Marcus was 41. He had the jaw of a movie star and the conscience of a pawnbroker. I had made him Chief Operating Officer 3 years ago because I believed in second chances. His mother, God rest her soul, had asked me on her deathbed to take care of him. I promised her I would. I had been keeping that promise at a cost of roughly $2 million a year in cleaned up messes, settled lawsuits, and buried scandals. Marcus was not a businessman. He was an expense. I arrived at the gala alone. I wore a simple navy suit, no tie, because after 43 years in trucking, I had earned the right to leave my collar open. I walked through the ballroom. People nodded at me. Some of the old drivers, men with weathered faces and diesel in their blood, shook my hand and called me Walt. I liked that. I liked being Walt. Marcus was holding court near the bar on the second-floor mezzanine, overlooking the ballroom like a general surveying his troops. He was wearing a suit that cost more than a driver's monthly salary. His wife, Dominique, was beside him in a red dress that could stop traffic on I-85. She was 28, a former model from Miami who had married Marcus for the lifestyle the way you marry a building for the view. They looked perfect together. 2 beautiful people with ugly souls. I climbed the curved staircase to the mezzanine. 7 steps. Italian marble imported from Carrara. I had chosen it myself when we renovated the hotel's event space as a sponsor. I remember counting the steps then, making sure the rise and run met code. I am a builder. I count everything. Marcus saw me coming. His smile tightened. He leaned over to Dominique and whispered something. She laughed, covering her mouth with her manicured hand. The gesture was practiced, theatrical. I had seen it before. It was the laugh of someone who had already won something you did not know was being contested. I approached them. "Happy Gala, Marcus," I said. I extended my hand. He did not shake it. Instead, he turned to a group of board members standing nearby. "Gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying across the mezzanine with the authority of a man who had never earned authority. "I want you to meet the founder of our little operation." He gestured at me like I was a museum exhibit. The man who started it all with 2 trucks and a dream. The room chuckled politely. I did not smile. Little operation. Brannigan Freight generated $420 million in revenue last year. There was nothing little about it except his respect for the man who made it possible. "I need to speak with you privately, Marcus," I said quietly. Not tonight, Dad. He waved his hand dismissively. Tonight is about the team. We can talk Monday. It is about the Savannah accounts, I pressed. The ones that are missing $1.4 million. The air around us changed. It was subtle, like the pressure dropping before a tornado. Marcus's smile did not waver, but his eyes went flat. They became the eyes of something calculating, something cornered. I had discovered the discrepancies 3 weeks earlier. $1.4 million had been siphoned from the Savannah distribution center through a series of phantom vendor payments. Shell companies with addresses that led to empty lots and mailbox stores. The money trail was complicated enough to fool the quarterly audit, but simple enough for a forensic accountant to unravel in 48 hours. Every shell company was registered under variations of Dominique's maiden name. They were not even trying to hide it well. They just assumed nobody was looking because the old man was supposed to be losing his edge. Marcus took my arm. His grip was hard, the same grip Bradley used in the original. He steered me away from the board members toward the top of the staircase, away from the crowd. Dominique followed, her heels clicking on the marble like a countdown. You are embarrassing me, Marcus hissed through his teeth. It is my gala night. You could not wait one night to play detective? $1.4 million, Marcus, I repeated. I traced it. I know where it went. I know about the shell companies. I know about the condo in Tulum. I know about the offshore account in the Caymans. His face changed color. It went from tan to gray in about 2 seconds, like watching concrete set. How much do you know? He asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. I know enough to call the FBI on Monday morning, I said. Or we can handle this as a family. You pay it back. You resign quietly. You get help for whatever gambling or spending addiction is driving this. And I let you walk away with your dignity. It was the last act of mercy I would ever offer him. I meant it sincerely. I was giving him an exit ramp off the highway to prison, and he looked at it the way a drunk driver looks at a stop sign. Dominique stepped closer. She put her hand on Marcus's shoulder. The touch was not comfort. It was ignition. You are not going to let this old man threaten you. Are you, babe? She murmured, loud enough for me to hear. He built some trucks. You built the brand. Without you, this company is a junkyard. Marcus straightened up. Something shifted behind his eyes. The cornered animal made a decision. He chose violence. He grabbed the lapel of my jacket with his left hand and shoved. The force was sudden, explosive. I was standing at the top of the staircase. My right foot found nothing but air. I went backward. 7 steps. I counted them on the way down because that is what builders do. We count. 1. My shoulder hit the railing. 2. My back twisted. 3. My knee buckled sideways. 4. 5. I was tumbling now. No control. Just gravity and marble and pain. 6. My hand reached for something, anything, and found nothing. 7. I hit the floor at the bottom. The sound was a wet, heavy thud, followed by a crack that silenced the entire ballroom. The jazz quartet stopped mid-note. 200 people turned and stared. I lay on the marble floor, looking up at the chandelier. The crystals were blurring, splitting into rainbows. My left hip screamed with a pain so intense it felt cold. My right wrist was bent at an angle that wrists should not bend. I tasted blood. I had bitten through my tongue on impact. Marcus stood at the top of the stairs. He looked down at me. He did not run down to help. He did not call for a doctor. He straightened his jacket, turned to the horrified board members, and said, He tripped. He has been drinking. Someone should call him a cab. Dominique giggled. She actually giggled. Then she pulled out her phone and started filming. She angled the camera down at me, sprawled and bleeding at the bottom of the stairs, and she smiled for the selfie like she was standing over a conquered city. 3 drivers rushed to my side, big men with rough hands who handled me with a gentleness that made my eyes sting. Easy, Walt. Easy. We got you. Do not move. Someone call 911. I grabbed the arm of the closest one, a man named Earl who had driven for me for 22 years. Earl, I whispered. My voice was a croak. I need you to do something for me. Anything, Mr. B. Get me my phone. And Earl, I need you to remember what you saw tonight. Every detail. Can you do that for me? Earl's eyes were hard. He had already seen everything. Yes, sir, he said. I will remember. The ambulance arrived. They loaded me onto a stretcher. As they wheeled me out, I caught Marcus watching from the mezzanine, leaning on the railing with a glass of champagne in his hand. He raised the glass slightly. The toast. To himself. To the new king who had just pushed the old king off the throne. 7 steps. I would remember that number. I spent 3 days in Piedmont Hospital. Fractured hip, broken wrist, 2 cracked ribs, concussion. The doctors told me I was lucky. At 67, a fall like that kills people. I told them luck had nothing to do with it. While I lay in that hospital bed, I did not rest. I worked. I made phone calls. I sent emails. I activated systems that had been dormant for years, waiting for exactly this moment. My first call was to Franklin Moss, my personal attorney. Franklin was 70 years old, a former federal prosecutor who had put away mob bosses and corrupt senators. He was retired, but he kept his law license active for what he called special occasions. This is a special occasion, Franklin, I said from my hospital bed. I told him everything. The shove, the embezzlement, the shell companies, the video Dominique had filmed and posted to her private Instagram story, which my investigator had already screenshotted and preserved. Franklin was quiet for a long time. Then he asked one question. How far do you want to go, Walter? I looked at the ceiling of my hospital room. I thought about my wife, Margaret, who had died believing our son would carry the family name with honor. I thought about the 43 years of 5 a.m. wake-ups and 16-hour days. I thought about the 7 steps and the sound my hip made when it broke. All the way down, I said. You see, Marcus did not know something critical. He believed he was the COO of Brannigan Freight, a publicly traded company where his position was protected by a board of directors, employment contracts, and corporate governance. But Brannigan Freight was not publicly traded. It never had been. It was a privately held LLC. And the operating agreement, which Marcus had signed without reading 8 years ago when I promoted him to VP, contained a provision I called Article 7. Article 7 stated that any officer who committed an act of physical violence against the managing member, meaning me, forfeited all equity, all compensation, and all access to company assets immediately and without notice. I had written it after the first time Marcus shoved me during an argument 5 years ago. A small shove, just enough to make me stumble. I did not react then. I just went home and called Franklin, and we spent a weekend rewriting the operating agreement. Marcus signed the new version at a routine board meeting. He did not read it. He never read anything. He just signed whatever his assistant put in front of him. That was his fatal flaw. He trusted his own importance. My second call was to Doris Ketchum, the head of forensic accounting at a firm I had used for 30 years. Doris, quote, I need a full audit of the Savannah distribution accounts, every transaction for the past 3 years. I need the shell company registrations, the bank records, the wire transfers. I need it airtight. How fast? She asked. 48 hours. That is expensive, Walter. I do not care about the cost, Doris. I care about the evidence. My third call was to Captain Russell Hayes of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Russell was a friend. We had served on a veterans charity board together. I told him what I had found. I told him I would have a complete forensic package on his desk within the week. I am not filing a complaint yet, Russell, I said. I want to build the case properly. When I hand this to you, I want it to be so clean that the grand jury indicts before lunch. Russell understood. Men like us do not move fast. We move precisely. I checked out of the hospital on a Wednesday morning. I walked with a cane. My hip was pinned together with titanium screws. Every step sent a jolt of pain up my spine, but I walked upright. A Brannigan does not slouch. I had my driver take me directly to the office. It was 7:30 in the morning. Marcus would not be in until 10. He was never in before 10. The executive floor was quiet. I walked to my office. The corner office with the view of the Atlanta skyline that I had earned one truck at a time. My assistant, Patricia, who had been with me for 19 years, looked up from her desk. She saw the cane. She saw the bruises. She saw the cast on my wrist. She opened her mouth to speak. I shook my head. Not now, Patricia. I need you to call an emergency board meeting for noon today. All members. No exceptions. Tell them the founder is invoking Article 7. The board meeting was held in the mahogany conference room on the 22nd floor. All 5 board members were present. They were men and women I had handpicked over the decades. People who owed their careers to Brannigan Freight. People who had watched Marcus transform from a promising young executive into a liability wrapped in a designer suit. I stood at the head of the table. I did not sit. Sitting would have been too painful with the hip, but I did not want them to see weakness. I wanted them to see resolve. I have 3 items, I said. I placed a folder on the table. First, this is the forensic accounting report, detailing $1.4 million in fraudulent vendor payments authorized by Marcus Brannigan over the past 26 months. The money was funneled through shell companies registered under his wife's maiden name to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The room was silent. I placed a second folder on the table. Second, this is the security footage from the Grand Piedmont Hotel showing Marcus Brannigan shoving me down a flight of stairs at the company Gala. I sustained a fractured hip, a broken wrist, 2 cracked ribs, and a concussion. I also have 17 written witness statements from employees who saw the assault. More silence. Then I placed the operating agreement on the table, open to Article 7. Third, under Article 7 of our operating agreement, which Marcus signed, any officer who commits physical violence against the managing member forfeits all equity, compensation, and access. I am invoking this article effective immediately. Marcus Brannigan is terminated. His equity stake of 12%, valued at approximately $28 million, reverts to the company. His salary, bonuses, and benefits are canceled. His company credit cards, his company vehicle, his company housing allowance, all of it ends today. The board voted unanimously. 5-0. It took less than 3 minutes. By 12:15, Marcus Brannigan was no longer the COO of the company his father had built. He was nobody. He just did not know it yet. I had Patricia change the locks on his office while the vote was still being recorded in the minutes. I had IT disable his email, his company phone, and his access badge. I had security remove his reserved parking sign from the garage. Every trace of Marcus Brannigan was erased from the building in under an hour. It was like he had never existed. At 2:30 that afternoon, Marcus pulled into the parking garage in his company-leased Mercedes. He took the elevator to the 22nd floor. He walked to his office. He put his badge against the reader. Red light. Access denied. He tried again. Red light. He looked confused. Annoyed. The way a man looks when technology inconveniences him for the first time. He walked to my office. He pushed the door open without knocking. He never knocked. I was sitting behind my desk, my cane leaning against the chair. The forensic report was spread out in front of me. "What is wrong with my badge?" he demanded. "It expired," I said calmly. "Along with your employment." The color drained from his face. He stood in the doorway, his mouth slightly open, trying to process the words. "What are you talking about?" I held up the operating agreement. "Article 7. You signed it. You assaulted me. You are terminated. Your equity is forfeit. Your access is revoked. You are trespassing." He took a step into the office. "You cannot fire me. I am your son." "You are not my son in this building," I said. "In this building, you are a former employee who stole $1.4 million and assaulted the owner." I pressed the intercom. "Patricia, please send in security." Marcus lunged forward. He grabbed the edge of my desk and leaned in, his face inches from mine. His breath smelled of expensive coffee and cheap desperation. "You think I am afraid of you, old man?" he whispered. "You fell down some stairs. That is all anyone saw. Accidents happen to old people. You fire me, I will go to the press. I will tell them you are senile. I will have the board declare you incompetent. I will take this company from you. I opened my laptop. I turned it toward him. On the screen was the video Dominique had filmed. The angle showed everything. Marcus grabbing my lapel. The shove. My body falling. 7 steps. The sound of the impact. His voice saying he tripped. He has been drinking. And Dominique's giggle. Her giggle that was about to cost them everything. Marcus stared at the screen. Where did you get that? Your wife posted it, I said. She thought it was content. Turns out it was evidence. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Escort Mr. Brannigan out of the building, I said. He is not to take anything from his office. Everything in there belongs to the company. Marcus did not fight the guards. The video had broken something inside him. He walked out between them like a man walking through a dream. At the elevator, he turned back and looked at me. His face was not angry. It was something worse. It was calculating. I recognized that look. It was the same look he had at the top of the stairs right before he shoved me. He was already planning his next move. What Marcus did not know was that his next move had already been checkmate. While he was being escorted out, Franklin Moss was sitting in Captain Russell Hayes's office at the GBI, handing over the forensic package. 1.4 million in embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and the video evidence of aggravated battery on a person over 65, which in Georgia is a felony carrying 5 to 20 years. The wheels of justice moved slowly, but I had greased them with evidence so clean you could eat off it. That evening, I sat in my apartment. It was a modest place for a man of my wealth. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen I actually cooked in, a balcony overlooking Piedmont Park where I drank my coffee every morning. I liked the simplicity. It reminded me of who I was before the money. My phone rang at 9:15. It was Marcus. I let it ring. Then came the texts. Dad, you cannot do this. I am your only son. Mom would be ashamed of you. I need to talk to you. Dad, please. Pick up. I am sorry about the stairs. I was drunk. You know how I get. It was not intentional. Not intentional. He grabbed my lapel with purpose. He positioned me at the top of the stairs with precision. He shoved with force. There was nothing accidental about it except his assumption that I would break quietly. Then came Dominique's texts. From her personal phone, which I had never given my number to, which meant Marcus had given it to her as part of some coordinated campaign. Walter, this is Dominique. Marcus is very upset. We need to have a family meeting. I think there has been a terrible misunderstanding. We love you very much. We want to make this right. Can we meet for dinner tomorrow? My treat. Her treat. With what money? The company cards were dead. The offshore account was frozen as of 4 p.m. when Doris filed the fraud alert with the bank. Dominique did not know that yet. She would find out tomorrow morning when her card declined at the salon she visited every Tuesday. I did not respond to any of the messages. Silence is the loudest sound in the world when someone is waiting for a lifeline. I had learned that from 43 years of negotiation. The person who speaks first loses. I went to bed. I slept well for the first time in 3 years. The pain in my hip was sharp, but the weight on my chest was gone. Thursday morning, the GBI moved. They did not come with sirens. They came with suits and warrants, and the quiet efficiency of men who had done this 100 times. They arrived at Marcus's home, a 5,000-square-foot house in Buckhead that I had been paying the mortgage on through a company housing allowance that no longer existed. Marcus opened the door in his bathrobe. He saw the badges. He saw the warrant. He tried to close the door. They did not let him. Marcus Brannigan, you are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, and aggravated battery on a person over the age of 65. Dominique screamed from the bedroom. She came running out in silk pajamas, demanding to know what was happening. A female agent handed her a separate warrant. Dominique Brannigan, you are also under arrest as a co-conspirator in wire fraud and money laundering. They were both taken out of the house in handcuffs. Separate vehicles. No conversation allowed. The house was sealed and searched. They found everything. The financial records Marcus thought he had hidden in the attic. the burner phone he used to communicate with the shell company accountant, the receipts for the Tulum condo, and one more thing that I did not expect. Franklin called me at noon with the discovery. Walter, they found a document in Marcus's home office safe. It is a petition for guardianship. He was planning to have you declared mentally incompetent. The paperwork was already filled out. He had hired a psychiatrist, some quack in Alpharetta, to provide an evaluation based on interviews with Marcus and Dominique, claiming you showed signs of dementia and paranoia. The petition was scheduled to be filed next Monday. I sat down. My hip ached, but this pain was different. It was the pain of understanding exactly how close I had come to losing everything. Not my money, not my company, myself. If that petition had been filed before I invoked Article 7, a court could have frozen my authority. Marcus could have argued that my decisions were the product of a deteriorating mind. He could have taken control of the company through a conservatorship. He was not just stealing from me. He was preparing to erase me. The shove down the stairs was not impulsive. It was strategic. He wanted me injured, confused, and dependent. He wanted hospital records showing cognitive decline after a traumatic fall. He was building a case, one push at a time, 7 steps. That is all that separated me from a locked ward and a legal guardian who would have drained my accounts, sold my company, and left me to die in a facility that smelled of disinfectant and despair. The trial took 4 months. I will spare you the legal choreography. The evidence was overwhelming. The video alone would have been enough. But the financial fraud turned it into a federal case when they discovered the offshore wires crossed state and international lines. Marcus pleaded not guilty. His lawyer tried to paint me as a vindictive old man who was punishing his son for a family disagreement. The jury watched the video. They watched me fall. They heard the crack. They heard Marcus say he tripped. They heard Dominique giggle. They deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Marcus received 12 years in federal prison. Dominique received 4 years as an accessory. The guardianship petition was entered into evidence as proof of premeditation, showing that the assault was part of a larger scheme to seize control. The judge called it one of the most calculated cases of elder abuse he had seen in 30 years on the bench. The day after the sentencing, I drove to the house in Buckhead. The bank had already begun foreclosure proceedings since the mortgage payments had stopped. The lawn was overgrown. The pool was green. The mailbox was overflowing with final notices and collection letters. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a while, looking at the house I had been paying for, the house where my son had plotted to erase me. I did not feel triumph. I felt tired. I felt old. I felt the 7 steps in my bones. Then I drove to a different house, a small brick ranch in Decatur, 30 minutes south. My granddaughter, Sophie, lived there with Marcus's first wife, Karen. Karen had divorced Marcus 6 years ago when she caught him cheating for the 3rd time. She had raised Sophie alone on a teacher's salary. She never asked me for money. She never badmouthed Marcus in front of the child. She just quietly, stubbornly, raised a good kid in a small house with a big heart. Sophie was 12. She had my wife Margaret's eyes. Warm, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. She opened the front door and looked at me. She saw the cane. She saw the healing bruises. She had seen the news. She knew what her father had done. "Hi, Grandpa," she said softly. "Are you okay?" "I am now," I said. She hugged me carefully, mindful of the hip, mindful of the ribs. It was the gentlest embrace I had received in years. She smelled like laundry detergent and grass. She smelled like childhood. She smelled like hope. I set up a trust that week. $2 million for Sophie's education. A separate fund for Karen. Enough to pay off the house and quit the second job she had been working at night to cover the bills. I hired a contractor to renovate the Decatur house. New roof, new kitchen. A proper room for Sophie with a desk and bookshelves. I paid for it in cash. Karen tried to refuse. I told her it was not charity. It was an investment in the only branch of the Brannigan family tree that still had a chance of bearing good fruit. Marcus wrote to me from prison. 1 letter every week, like clockwork. The handwriting was small and cramped. Nothing like the bold signature he used to scrawl on expense reports without looking. I recognized the envelopes. I did not open them. I bought a paper shredder specifically for this purpose. It sits next to my kitchen table. Every Monday morning, I feed his letter into it while I drink my coffee. The sound it makes is not satisfying. It is not cathartic. It is just the sound of paper being destroyed, which is what happens to words that arrive too late to matter. I still walk with a cane. The doctors say the limp might be permanent. Some days the hip aches so badly I cannot get out of bed until noon. But I get up. I always get up. I go to the office. I run my company. I call Sophie every Sunday. I am teaching her to read financial statements because no Brannigan should ever sign something they have not read. Last week, I stood on the balcony of my apartment watching the sunrise over Piedmont Park. The city was waking up. Trucks were rolling on the highways, some of them mine, carrying freight and paychecks and the quiet machinery of an honest life. I thought about the 7 steps. I thought about the sound my hip made. I thought about Marcus standing at the top, adjusting his cufflinks while his father lay bleeding at the bottom. He thought pushing me down would push me out. He was wrong. It pushed me forward. Some people mistake patience for weakness. They see an old man with a cane, and they see a target. They do not see the 43 years of 5 a.m. mornings and handshake deals and hurricanes survived and recessions outlasted. They do not see the foundation. You can push a man down 7 steps. You can break his hip and crack his ribs and make him taste his own blood on a marble floor. But if that man poured the foundation of his own life with his own hands, he will get back up. He will always get back up. And when he does, he will not come at you with fists. He will come at you with paperwork. Because fists leave bruises that heal. Paperwork leaves scars that last forever. 7 steps down. That was his move. Every step I have taken since has been mine, and I intend to keep walking for a very long time. Not out of spite, but because there is a 12-year-old girl in Decatur who needs to know that the Brannigan name means something. It means you get up. It means you build. It means you do not quit. Even when your own blood pushes you down, you get up, and you build something better on top of the wreckage. If you believe that respect is earned and consequences are not optional, hit that like button and subscribe to Father's Cold Revenge. Leave a comment telling me, have you ever been betrayed by someone you sacrificed everything for? I will see you in the next one.